In today's video, we're discussing some latest rumors regarding the Montreal Canadiens. We're looking at a potential buyout, potential trade, well, some free agent targets we might see. Plus, we also have some trade rumors regarding the Nashville Predators. And we're going to recap all of last night's NHL playoff auction. And of course, take a look at what to expect tonight as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here, Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we had another great night of NHL playoff action last night. We had the first batch of Game 2s in the first round of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, we now have some series 2-1, some are 2-0, and we'll take a look at a recap here. What went down last night? We saw the Florida Panthers win against the Boston Bruins 6-3. The Panthers were one of only two NHL teams this year, themselves and the Ottawa Senators, who actually beat the Bruins on more than one occasion. Although last night you could make an argument that Boston certainly didn't play well. Allred was off. The team in front of them wasn't really the greatest either. It's probably the worst game we've seen Boston play all season. I think that's fair to say. They certainly started to respond physically near the end of the game. I think we'll see a different Bruins team in Game 3 as they switch now to the arena in Florida. But at the end of the day, the Panthers were able to even up the series, take a 6-3 win. Although we did see a hit from Bruins forward Thomas Nosek on, I believe it was Eric Staal of the Panthers. And to me, I mean, it was down in the corner, kind of away from the play a little bit. But to me, it was very similar to what we see with Michael Bunting on Eric Chernak. The same sort of thing where the arm made contact with the player's head. Now, there was no call on the play. And, of course, the Bunting incident was picked up by the refs. He was given a match penalty, which automatically triggers a review. But where's Department of Player Safety on this one? And this seems like sometimes we see these cases of no calls and nothing. I'm not sure what the situation is with Eric Staal, but it looked bad. I mean, it was definitely a headshot, and there's nothing. It just, I mean, you can say what you want. I know I've seen some fan bases complaining about the refs, and in some cases even blaming the refs for their loss. I don't think that anybody lost because of the refs. I don't think anybody won because of the refs. Has the refereeing, though, been inconsistent so far in the early part of the playoffs? I will say yes, indeed. And so was the Department of Player Safety. I do find that frustrating. You just want to see a fairly called, evenly called matchup. There's calls that you see that you question, some that you don't see any question, and it's been a bit of both on every game I've watched. And I've seen bits and pieces of all the games so far. And I think most of them have had some, questionable parts to it, for sure. But, well, hopefully that gets better. Like, for example, we've seen the Carolina Hurricanes go up 2-0 on the Islanders last night. A couple of things went uncalled in that one. For example, the Canes, of course, had the early lead. Islanders kept coming back, and at one point actually had a 3-2 lead going into the third. Canes tied it up, and the Canes ended up getting the go-ahead goal and went in overtime. Now, unfortunately for the Islanders, the winning goal, for example, there was a high stick on defenseman Scott Mayfield that was not called. But the weird part is Mayfield decided to go complain to the ref, and even though the whistle hadn't gone, and he was completely out of position, which ultimately led to the winning goal. Like, why he did that, I don't know. I can understand why you might complain about the fact that you got a high stick to the face and nothing was called, but you can't do that after the whistle. The whistle's not gone and the play's still going. You got to play your normal spot. You can't be doing that. So ultimately, they kind of self-destructed there because of a non-call. But we also see a non-call earlier in the game. The Carolina Hurricanes are not going to be without forward Teuvo Teravainen. He's going to be out for at least the rest of the series. You never know, it could be longer. But apparently he's got like a broken wrist from a slash. And I did see the play. It was Pajot, actually, that comes across and slashes him, gets him on the wrist. Now, he did stay out for a while. He didn't go straight to the bench. That's the part that seemed a little weird to me, but ultimately sometimes you don't know how bad the injury is, I guess. But it was on the power play. He did stay out for a while. Anyways, but yeah, that led to an injury. No call on that one either. So again, just inconsistency, but the Canes certainly continue to be a strong team. The Islanders, in my opinion, probably deserved better. In that case, Ilya Sorokin, who's normally like a rock back there, one of the top goalies in the league, a couple of those goals he definitely should have had. One, he was down way too early, giving up the top of the net for Slavin to go over top of him. And on the overtime goal, he was back too far in his crease on the goal line and over too far, and they had a whole side of the net there. So Sorokin definitely at fault, in my opinion, for a couple of those goals, which cost the game. Refs inconsistent. I'm not sure that the refs really had the impact. Like I said, I understand Mayfield being frustrated, but you do that after the whistle, not during the play. Anyways, it was a good game, though. 4-3 Canes, and go up 2-0. Dallas storms back with a big win over Minnesota, 7-3 to even that series up 1-1. Rupe Hintz on a hat trick. Marc-Andre Fleury gets the start, did not play well. He himself said he was embarrassed by his play, played terrible. After Gustafsson played game 1 and had a phenomenal start, wicked game, picked up the win, made a huge number of saves. So a crazy game for him for his first playoff game. But they stuck with the fact that they wanted to rotate like they've been doing through the regular season. And not common to see that in the playoffs. I wonder if they're regretting that now. There's been a lot of talk since the playoffs started because the tandem approach and rotating regardless of results is becoming more common. And you kind of wonder, can a team win a cup that way? And they're the first ones to try it and then ultimately blow up on them. I don't know if you can blame Fleury, though. You can make an argument, I think, that the team in front of them played poor enough that even if Gustafsson was in there, they might have lost anyway. It's hard to say. I would think it's probably fair to say they're going back to Gus in game 3. But if they do play better and he wins, or even if it loses, but he plays really well and it's close, do they stick with him or do they continue to do the rotation? We'll have to wait and see. I don't know. The Oilers even up their series against LA with a 4-2 win. McDavid's still on the quieter side when it comes to goals. They are doing a good job defending him, but thankfully for Edmonton, they're a pretty deep team and have lots of weapons, so it's not all on McDavid, but Draisaitl has been especially good. They had a really good first period. Obviously picked up a couple of goals. I thought they were dominant early on. LA did come back later in the second period. He had a couple of quick ones near the end of the period to tie things up. And for the Oilers' sake, thankfully, they came out the third quickly, playing really well. Got a big goal from Clint Costin, and then Evander Kane added an empty netter to seal up the victory. So that series is now 1-1 here as well. So we've got 3 and a 4 that went last night, went evened up, and one series went 2-0. Of course, tonight you got Leafs Lightning to go again for game 2. See a lot of complaining with the referee in that one as well. A lot of Leaf fans online blaming the refs, blaming Wes McCauley. I don't think that's the reason why you lost at all. You can make an argument in that game that the reason the Leafs got back in it was because of the calls on Tampa and their power play delivered and a couple of power play goals, which made it close. And then the momentum shifted the other way. And after the Leafs getting a couple of consecutive power plays like that, you should know that that's how referees typically go. They're likely going to give Tampa the next call, and they did. And again, and then after that, it was the bunting, major penalty, kind of spelled on the fact. I don't think the refs had any, anything to do with the outcome. I mean, it frustrates me when you see that. Like, again, you could always make an argument that there's a missed call here or there. To me, it typically happens all the time, usually evens itself out, and it's not the reason why a team won or a team lost. So I know they're going to hear it for a lot tonight. I've already seen people complaining online because he's the one who made that interference call that a lot of Leafs fans did not like last year against Justin Hall, which indeed was 100% a penalty in my opinion. So stop focusing on the referees, focus on your team, and maybe put a little bit of onus on the players. Maybe it's their fault if they win. Maybe it's their fault if they lose. They may take that approach, and we'll see if the Leafs can even things up here tonight. Of course, also the other parts of the league, you're going to see Colorado try to even things up with Seattle. That's going to be an important game for the defending Cup champions for sure. Obviously, they don't want to go down 2-0 heading into the rival building in Seattle. That's something you don't want to see, but Grubauer has been playing well. We'll see how things go for the Avalanche. You're going to have the Devils and Rangers do battle, and New Jersey's going to try to bounce back. The Rangers were really dominant in Game 1. Be interesting to see if they keep things up or if New Jersey can make some adjustments to make things a little bit more interesting. And of course, you're going to have Game 2 as well tonight between the Winnipeg Jets and the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas did not play well at all. There are lots of adjustments that they have to make. We'll see if they can make that and play better, or can the Jets continue to push here and take a 2-0 series lead. That'll be very interesting to see for sure. As far as the lineup for tonight's game and the New Jersey game, you're not going to see Luke Hughes tonight. Victor Hedman's a game-time decision for Tampa. Eric Chernak is out. So Hedman might play. Chernak definitely won't. There is a possibility Tanner Jeannot could be in. Actually, seems like the odds are more favorable that he will play. We'll see. I'm not sure exactly what time this video is hitting YouTube. It should make it on YouTube before the game time, so we'll see what happens there. And we also have Teravainen's out for the rest of the series with the Islanders and Canes. The Penguins also announced something in a non-playoff team that defenseman Jan Ruda had a core muscle surgery and is going to need about 8 to 10 weeks of recovery. So it's certainly going to impact his summer and training ability. So we'll see what happens there. On to the rumor section of the video. First, let's start with Nashville, and I'm going to have a bunch of stuff to talk about in Montreal. The Predators. One player that they picked up at the deadline was Tyson Barrie. It wasn't a name that we were really sure was going to be moved by Edmonton. There was a lot of speculation leading to the deadline that the Oilers wanted to go after a different style of defenseman to shore up the defensive side of the game. Ekholm has proven to be the absolute perfect fit. He's played excellent with them, been a great fit, and they've had a great record really ever since he's been there. So clearly I think Edmonton made the right decision, the right move. Of course, part of the package going back to the Predators was defenseman Tyson Barrie. Now, we know that there's going to be change in the GM, which is kind of already basically underway between Barry Trotz and David Poile. Poile's still going to be there as a consultant, but Barrie will be running the show. And I believe at this point that they're really going to focus hard on getting younger and faster and adding some more skill to that lineup, and that some of the older veterans are probably going to be looking to be moved. Like I would suspect, and I don't know, it's not going to be easy, but good chance between Matt Duchene and Ranger Hansen that they'd really like to move on from at least one of those contracts. They're both making a lot of money and oftentimes not living up to it. But another name like Tyson Barrie is probably not going to stick around. At least it's believed that they would likely move him. Now, if he isn't moved, he could be traded later in the season. Of course, Nashville was going to try to retool and get themselves back in the playoff position. They didn't miss by a whole lot this year. And, they could very well get in next year with a few tweaks, but we'll see where things go. But if they're not in next year and they want to be sellers, Barrie could be a good trade deadline piece themselves that they could move if he stays. But it's believed that they would like to move him and get somebody that's a little bit younger. So obviously there's lots of teams out there looking for help on the blue line. Barry's a veteran guy, been around for quite a while, so obviously lots of experience, both regular season and playoffs, right shot, which is good, and not the greatest defensively, but he's a good puck mover and good offensive instinct. So if you're looking for some help on the power play 1, power play 2, somebody who can skate well, move the puck, and he's only on a contract for 1 more year without an absorbent amount of money at, a good veteran, right shot D, he could be a guy to pick up. So I wouldn't be shocked to see them consider moving him. Of course, it's going to depend on the return that they get for an offer. It's not a guarantee that it happens. Like I said, he could stick around and be moved later at the deadline or something, but it's believed they're going to try to flip him after having him staying out and finishing the regular season there at the end of this year. Now, with Montreal, lots of different talk that we're seeing. I've seen some speculation on a buyout. I've seen some speculation on potential trades and free agencies that they might be looking at as well. Now, when it comes to the buyout, the player's name that came up here that might be facing that is Mike Hoffman, but of course he could be traded as well. I mean, he's one of the main forwards that has not been moved as of yet that they would like to. He's obviously not much time left on his contract. There was some, I think, mild interest around the deadline, but nobody was real serious about picking him up. As much as he's a guy who can still shoot the puck well, he can still score, but obviously he hasn't been the most consistent player. Not really good at both ends of the ice. Starting to slow down a little bit. I still think he could I wouldn't be shocked to see Hoffman, still stick around the league another little while, another couple of years, maybe, hard to say. But I would imagine he's not going to likely, unless he finds the right situation where he can thrive, probably not going to be quite as productive as he used to be. So Montreal, when they were trying to trade him, and it hasn't worked out, it is speculated that the Habs are discussing a potential buyout because they would save a good amount of money on a buyout for the coming year. They would have an extra cap hit of dead money the year after because that's obviously 2/3 of the money at twice the time frame. So we've got 1 year left. So they'd save money next year, but then they would have some dead money on a cap hit for the year after. It wouldn't be substantial, but still, it's a scenario that they could consider if they don't think they can trade them. There's going to be a buyout window. Obviously not long. I think it's so many days after the Stanley Cup's awarded. And then, of course, once RFA business is all taken care of, if you had an RFA go through arbitration, then you get another window as well. So I would imagine they wouldn't look for a second window. It depends because they could have that pop up. I'm not sure if any of the RFAs right off the top of my head have arbor rates or not, but it doesn't matter. I think Montreal will make a decision on that quickly. They'll either try to find a trade for him or once that window opens, if they don't have one as of yet, I would suspect that's something they're going to seriously consider doing to be able to move on. They need to move on from some forwards. A couple of them are going to be UFAs, like a Jonathan Drouin, for example, likely doesn't come back. lots of talk about Josh Anderson. Josh Anderson was actually point blank asked in a trade rumor at the end of season media availability, and he seemed to be quite irritated and agitated by it, saying basically that the media was kind of making up stuff and that they could write whatever they wanted, and that he didn't feel he was going to be traded, didn't really want to be traded or anything of that nature. But based on the NHL insiders, there were reports, like a lot of heavy reports, that there was a lot of interest in Josh Anderson. And I won't be shocked if Montreal continues to get the interest. And now, whether or not they want to pull the trigger on a deal, completely different story. If they're not blown away by something that, maybe they don't do it. But at the end of the day, the interest was there. I think it's going to continue to be there. If they want to continue to hang on to him, so be it. But if they can have a chance to get another first-round pick in a deep draft, maybe they pull the trigger. We'll have to wait and see. But Anderson, the interest has definitely been there. Hoffman, it has not been, which is why a buyout seems more likely. Now, TVA Sports also speculating on some targets that they could look at in free agency, and it includes Alex Killorn of Tampa Bay. Now, of course, the Lightning are still actively playing the playoff series against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Killorn had a career season this year in goals on an expiring deal. Has been through a lot. Obviously played a ton of hockey with Tampa. Has had some few serious injuries, but for the most part been a productive, solid middle six winger for Tampa. Given their cap situation and the long-term deals they have, it is going to be very challenging for them to hang on to Killorn. He's survived a couple of times now so far when they've had to make roster cuts and move on from players that they didn't really want to because of the cap situation. And being a very successful team, a lot of these players were earning raises, and it's just, it's hard to keep everybody intact. It just can't be done. That's what the salary cap always does to teams, especially successful ones. And so far, he's managed to stay through and everything, but it's at a point now where he's going to be a free agent and likely looking for one last cash in. And, it's not saying that it's a given that he's gone from Tampa. It's just going to be quite challenging for them to be able to pay him any amount of money that he's probably going to deemed to be satisfactory. So a lot of people are suspecting that he very well could move on. Of course, he was born in Halifax, but mostly grew up in Quebec, so it would be, sort of a homecoming for him, although completely different world living in Florida compared to Quebec. But at the same time, Montreal, if they can move on from enough other players off their roster and get the flexibility they're looking for, they might be able to offer him a little bit more money. But there will be a good market for Alex Killorn, assuming he does hit free agency, there's no doubt. But I do see, if they move on from a guy like Anderson, of course, or if Hoffman gets bought out especially, then there's another player like, Armia, for example. He's likely back because of the lack of options. But, if they can free up enough money, it makes sense. But I don't know. I think it's far from a given that Killorn goes to Montreal. I think he's going to have lots of options, and depends on where things are at for him personally. I'm not sure where things fall there. And they also speculated that Damon Severson in New Jersey could be a potential defenseman that they should target as well. Of course, he's a right shot D, veteran guy, offensively fairly gifted, could run a power play. Okay defensively, but not strong at this point for sure. Severson, there's almost a guarantee to leave New Jersey. I know I've argued with Devils fans all season about that, saying that he's likely gone after this year, and a lot of them don't want to believe that. But take a look at that blue line, and you add Luke Hughes now to end of the year, and then of course you still got a guy like Simon Nemec coming. They could not afford to sign Severson longer term with what they've built in the double system. If he signs maybe a 1 year cheaper contract or something that you don't expect, maybe he stays, but I just don't see that happening. David Severson's going to be looking for an opportunity to get some stability and some security and, another payday. And he can get that on the market for sure. And I still think New Jersey's going to be able to do that. Doesn't really make sense unless they move somebody else out and decide to keep him. But somebody there is likely going to have to go so that guys like Luke Hughes and Nemec actually have a chance to play in the NHL, which they certainly deserve. So we'll see. Severson could be a target of Montreal. The argument there was that they had so many young defensemen that it might make sense to give them more opportunity to grow and develop in the AHL, not have to put too much pressure on them, especially if they do move a guy like Joel Edmondson, because there's been a lot of interest in him. That it could be a case if they get the interest in Edmondson that they're thinking, maybe they flip him for, whatever assets they can get, and then maybe he comes in as like the veteran replacement type of guy who they can maybe flip down the road. Although I would suspect that Severson likely is going to be looking for more in a 1 or 2 year deal. He's probably going to be wanting a little bit more term. And again, I don't think Montreal's going to give him that. So I can understand the Hoffman buyout makes sense, a potential Anderson trade If they get a spectacular offer only, makes sense. Of course, there is the whole Pierre-Luc Dubois scenario, which we're not really talking about tonight, but again, that's something to watch when it comes to Montreal this offseason. But I don't know, as far as the UFA targets from TBA Sports, kind of makes sense, but I'm not really sure I see either one happening. But let me know what you think down in the comments, and we'll talk about it further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.